I love diving deep into relationships with all of you, so let's talk about Love is Blind, Episode 8. Hi, I'm Dr. Pam, therapist and passionate couples counselor, and today I'm going to break down Dave and Lauren's relationship, and I'm going to focus on why Dave struggles with trust, and I will explain that no matter what Lauren does, she will never gain his trust, and I'll talk about why Lauren feels it's her responsibility to prove she's trustworthy. And in addition to talking about trust, I'm going to dive into themes of trauma, low self-worth, and how our past experiences shape the way we show up in our adult romantic relationships. And I do also want to mention that, as you know, Love is Blind is a heavily edited show, and my comments are based on what we see in front of us. This isn't about judging the people on the show. It's about learning from them, for which I am truly grateful. And just a quick note, what I'm sharing about Dave's trust issues isn't meant to apply to everyone. Trust is deeply personal and very complex, and this is just one lens based on what we see. Okay, let's start here.
You guys had sex yet? You guys having sex yet? Like, I've been asking people, like, have you had sex yet? And they're like, whoa. I just genuinely want to know, are you guys having sex yet? Like, what's it like? We were just talking to, like, you guys haven't had sex yet?
No.
We haven't either.
It may appear that Dave is obsessed with sex, but what he is actually struggling with is a lack of understanding about relationships, intimacy, and how it all truly works. In my video that I did about Dave and trauma, I talked about how when our inner world or emotional development is limited, we often turn to others to help us make sense of our experiences. And it seems like the only thing that Dave really understands about relationships is that sex is a part of it. He hasn't yet developed a deeper understanding of the emotional layers within himself, within others, or within relationships. So he turns to others to try to make sense of everything. But that won't help him. And I'll say more about why throughout this whole video.
Lauren's great.
She is great.
Love
Lauren,
her.
she moves a lot at night. She pees a lot. Not
Do you
just during
snore?
the night.
Well,
A little bit.
Keep her up.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been
I'm
trying
gonna
to
ground you a little bit. Be nice to her.
I will be.
Dave shows a complete lack of boundaries when he shares deeply personal and private things about Lauren. This isn't just a moment of poor judgment. It reflects a deeper issue, a lack of understanding about intimacy, emotional safety, and respect, what that truly looks like in a relationship. This kind of lack of boundaries does often stem from early experiences where emotional boundaries weren't modeled or respected. And on some level, Taylor picks up on Dave's relational immaturity. When she tells him to be nice to Lauren, it's as if she senses that Dave doesn't fully understand how relationships work. Not because he's being malicious, but because he likely never learned the emotional understanding or experiences that help us build healthy connections. This isn't about blaming, it's about recognizing how trauma and a lack of relational learning can shape the way we show up with others. So, moving on, Dave and Lauren are now living together.
Having to, like, hear that all these people are already, like, talking about my personal life, you know, and, like, what I'm choosing to do, like, that sucks. Like, certain people, I'm just like, why are they wasting their time and energy talking about me, like, what I'm choosing to do with my life?
There's a reason Dave's friends and sister talk openly about Dave's personal life. It's likely because he invites them into it constantly, just as we have witnessed him do on Love is Blind. But what stands out is that Dave seems genuinely confused and even hurt when people form opinions about how he lives his life. He shares personal details freely, involves multiple people in his relationship, as well as turns outward to process his emotions. Yet, he is surprised when people have something to say about it. That kind of disconnect often comes from trauma or emotional neglect, where someone wasn't taught how to safely hold and process their own emotions. So they turn to others to make sense of what they're feeling, without realizing that by doing so, they are also opening themselves up to judgment. The confusion comes from not recognizing that when he brings people into his emotional world, they will inevitably respond, and sometimes that response won't feel good. So next, just a quick recap for you about what's going on between Dave and Lauren and the other guy.
My friends they're just like, their first impression already is like, oh, this girl is dating a guy that we know. Apparently they hung out like the Friday before she left on Sunday. And apparently the guy's like still texting her and trying to see her and stuff. And he lives in the freaking building that we moved into.
Now, as we move forward, keep in mind Dave's friends and sisters' opinions matter deeply to him. Why? Because, as I mentioned earlier, he turns to others to help him make sense of his inner world, what he thinks, what he feels, and even what he believes about himself and others. He hasn't yet developed the ability to process those things emotionally on his own, so he relies on outside voices to shape his understanding of his own experience.
It's one of those things like, do I believe her? Do I believe this guy / my friends? The tricky thing for me has been like, my sister knows now. She heard that like Lauren has had a boyfriend going into this.
There is a big important piece missing here. Dave keeps saying, should I believe Lauren? Should I believe the guy? Should I believe my friends? Should I listen to my sister? But the real issue isn't about any of them. The truth is, Dave doesn't trust himself. And if you can't trust yourself, your own judgment, your own instincts, your own feelings, you will never be able to fully trust another person. It will not matter what Lauren says or does to prove she's trustworthy. She could do everything right, and it still wouldn't be enough. Not because of anything she's doing wrong, but because his trust issues are rooted inside him, not in her. And as we continue, I'm going to share why Lauren doesn't see what's really going on and how that is affecting her in more ways than I think she realizes.
It did not feel like there was anything I was hiding from you.
I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. The guy and like certain people, it's just kind of been a lot trying to explain to friends and family.
Yeah.
But your friends that are believing this,
I don't know what's real and
it's
what's
hard.
not.
When Dave says, I don't know what's real, that is actually his truth, and it's a powerful one. In the video that I made about trauma, I talked about how trauma often leaves a person feeling confused and disconnected from their own reality. It can blur the line between what feels true and what feels safe. Now, I want to be clear. I can't say for certain that Dave has experienced trauma, and it's important to remember that trauma comes in many different forms. Sometimes it doesn't even look like what we traditionally think of as trauma. For example, emotional neglect, which is often overlooked. A family can appear very happy and functional on the outside, while a child on the inside in the home is emotionally unseen and unsupported. That kind of neglect can have a lasting traumatic impact, and it often shows up in adult relationships through things like self-doubt, difficulty trusting others and yourself, and feeling unsure about what's real or who to believe. So when Dave says he doesn't know what's real, it might not only come from what's happening in the moment, but it could be something that he's experienced his whole life. Again, I don't know if this is true, but it's something to consider. And as this continues, Lauren's friends try hard to convince Dave that he can trust her. It gets to the point where Lauren becomes emotional and breaks down. She said previously that she feels very fragile. So while she's going through all of this, it is really chipping away at her.
What do you feel like you need, or what is the...
I need like you to like trust me.
I know.
Lauren is clearly hurt that Dave doesn't trust her. And of course, that pain is understandable. It always hurts when someone you care about questions your integrity. But if I were counseling Lauren, I would want her to reflect on her life experiences that led her here and ask her, were there moments growing up when you didn't feel trusted? perhaps regarding decisions that you wanted to make, or even your thoughts or your feelings, because sometimes we unconsciously gravitate towards dynamics that feel familiar, even if they're painful. So Lauren may be sitting in a pattern that feels very familiar to her, which is she is someone who deserves to be trusted, but isn't. And that can be deeply frustrating, especially for someone like Lauren, who appears very smart and articulate. It can be confusing for her to find herself in relationships where she feels the need to constantly prove her trustworthiness. Lauren's growth work is recognizing that her worth and value do not need to be proven. They already exist inside her. Healing will not come from convincing others to trust her, but from trusting herself and honoring herself first.
You look gorgeous. Okay.
She said, okay.
I leave now.
I think this moment is very telling. Lauren seems genuinely uncomfortable when she is being told that she is gorgeous. Her response, simply saying okay, along with her facial expression, reveals something deeper within her. It shows the work she needs to do around self-worth and self-esteem, and yes, even self-love, as cliche as that might sound. When compliments feel hard to receive, it often reflects a disconnect between how others see us and how we see ourselves. This kind of inner work can be powerful, and it's where true transformation begins. Because when Lauren begins to fully believe in her own worth without needing external validation like she did in the pods when she tried to convince Dave to pick her, that's when she'll be ready for the kind of relationship she clearly craves and deeply deserves.
I hate seeing you cry.
I don't know what else to do. Like I'm so helpless. I don't know what else like you need.
I'm trying to block out all that other noise and just like, what do I think? What does Dave think? What's like the best, like mature way to like handle this?
I don't think this is the first time Lauren has felt helpless in wanting to be trusted. As I mentioned earlier, this is likely a familiar emotional experience for her, one that may go way back much further than what she's going through in this relationship with Dave. And while Dave is asking himself a very meaningful question like, what do I think? Which is a good start, the reality is that both he and Lauren would benefit from guidance outside of themselves. When you're stuck in a relational pattern, self-reflection alone often isn't enough. It takes support and insight and sometimes another person holding up a kind of mirror to help you grow and build self-awareness and move forward in a healthy way.
Like you didn't flirt with someone at a bar like a week before you came here?
I wasn't like going home, hooking up with people literally a day before.
It was not a day before. I did not
Literally
hook up with him the day or even the week before coming here. You knew for a fact that I was with him the night before. That's not a fact. It's not true.
As their relationship continues, we see a pattern. Dave is heavily influenced by what his friends tell him, and Lauren continues to try to convince him otherwise. From what we're seeing, it seems that Lauren has spent a lot of time trying to convince people, whether it was proving she could be trusted, defending her thoughts or her feelings, or simply trying to be seen and believed. Of course, I can't know her full story, but the pattern shows up clearly. Even in the pods, she didn't trust for the relationship to unfold naturally. Instead, she worked to convince Dave that she was the right person for him and wanting to be picked, rather than standing in her own self-worth and letting him meet her in her own self-worth, or even stepping away. Another thing that I noticed about Lauren is that she has said to Dave multiple times, I don't want to discredit you for what you're feeling, which really stood out to me because it made me wonder if she's experienced being discredited herself in her life, having her feelings dismissed or invalidated. And now she's in a relationship where that very thing is happening. Dave is discrediting her, and so are his friends, people she hasn't even met. And sometimes we become especially mindful of giving to others what we didn't receive ourselves. But Lauren's growth work is about recognizing that while her empathy is a strength, she also deserves to receive the same emotional empathy, safety, and validation in return that she so freely and willingly gives to others.
I'd rather us like not go our separate ways tonight.
Okay. I mean, see, that's where, like, I would, because I don't feel comfortable right now, like, being here. But I also don't know what else to do. I just need to, like, figure things out.
Dave doesn't know how to sit in emotional discomfort, and he hasn't yet learned how to work through challenges with Lauren while staying emotionally connected with her. Instead, he turns to others, as I said, friends, family, and anyone who might help him make sense of what he's feeling. But the truth is, he's relying on others to do the very work that only he can do. No matter how many people he talks to, he will not find the clarity he's seeking, because growth work doesn't come from external opinions. It comes from learning to turn inward, learning to trust yourself, and to sit with the uncomfortable emotions long enough to understand them. That's Dave's growth work. And Lauren's growth work is learning to recognize her own self-worth and self-value and not needing to prove herself to others. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot more to talk about as we watch their relationship unfold. Okay, that is a wrap on episode 8. Make sure to come back for more Love is Blind as the couples start meeting each other's families. And I'm going to be diving into what healthy and unhealthy boundaries look like in families, and so much more. If you found today's tips helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with someone who might benefit. And don't forget to subscribe for more insights on love, relationships, and personal growth. See you next time.